Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd like to highlight today the meaning of the word justice. Its dictionary definition is a concern for justice, peace and genuine respect for people, fairness, equity and egalitarianism. Presiding Officer, I believe these values are precisely what the Offensive Behaviour at Football Act promotes. It sends out a clear message that we will not permit discrimination, violence, sectarianism, prejudice or hate crime in Scotland. I think we should clear up a few myths about this Act. The Offensive Behaviour at Football Act is working and is reducing sectarianism at football. There's been an increase of 49% of people charged with offensive behaviour in 2015 to 16 from the previous year. That's 49% less abusive behaviour and language on our football terraces and streets. The fact is that the Act is supported by the majority of the public, around 80%, who just want to enjoy the game of football without having to experience the bile and hate, sorry, I have too little time, bile and hate from a tiny minority of fans. It is, of course, also supported in the main by football clubs across Scotland. But this Act is not confined to football. An offence is also committed if the material is intended to stir up religiously motivated hatred and cannot be reduced to sectarianism or football in isolation, as the problem goes way beyond the football grounds. It's also designed to address online communications and hate crime. Of course, we will consider ways to improve the application of the Act, and we are happy to do so, but getting rid of this additional useful tool, which strengthens existing legislation for police and prosecutors by repealing it, is not a priority for this government. The Crown Office has said it would leave a gap in legislation, and we will be the only part of the UK that does not have this. Repealing it would be an entirely retrograde step. What kind of message would that send out to the next generation? Presiding Officer, when my son was a football-mad 6-year-old and wanted a football top, we bought him a Partick Thistle top so that he wouldn't be identified with either side of the old firm. Because how do you explain sectarianism to a young child? Quite simply, you can't and you shouldn't have to. It's been the curse of the West of Scotland, and any steps our government takes to put a stop to it should be welcomed. The Conservative motion put forward by Douglas Ross asking for the repeal of the Act is, I believe, regressive and negative. His motion rightly states that sectarian behaviour and hate crime are a blight on society in Scotland. But Douglas Ross's party, like Labour, have not come up with a single solution to solve the problem. What is their alternative?
She's in her last half-minute.
Breach of the peace is simply not strong enough. Incidentally, Labour and the Tories both supported this Act wholeheartedly in 2011. I say to those who oppose this Act, we are proud that rather than paying lip service to the problem, this SNP government are actually prepared to tackle it head-on and rid Scotland of this poison which has been a blight on our nation for far too long. Thank you.